So what we're gonna do, I'll tell everybody how the meeting's gonna go. I'll get up here and talk about ITI and ITIeducation.org. I'm sure everybody's gone there because they already pre-registered and they paid a little $20. And basically that's why, so we used to start out with what, Vivi Pasadena, right? This was Vivi Pasadena multifamily. And what a lot of the people are, Christina and Steve wanted to do is they wanted to be able to teach. And Vivi, for investor by investor, wasn't able to let them do that. So we broke away from for investor by investor and was able to teach. So we're taking a few of the classes and hopefully some of the people that are here have taken some of the classes. I think we've had at least 3. What do we have? We had a beginner class and out-of-state and in-state investing. And I think next month, I think Bronson is teaching, what is he teaching?
Capital raising.
Capital raising. So if you guys are interested, I think that one is online. So it's not in the classroom. So if you guys are interested in capital raising that this next month, I think it's this month. You can go onto our website. And again, the website is ITIeducation.org if you're interested in capital raising. And he does a tremendous amount of capital raising and he's got a lot of stuff that he can teach. Then let's see, I can go through our mission statement and our vision statement. Vision statement is to become a recognized brand for transformation through real estate, education, and networking. Our mission statement, we aim to grow and transform the quality of our participants' lives by producing education and network opportunities among like-minded individuals. So we're aiming to educate and do a lot of other things with everybody that's here. Let's see. Just what else did I want to do? I wanted to introduce our people that are sponsoring, Agnes and Rodrigo. If you guys want to come up. And to sponsor our group. You can see what they're doing. They're coming up and talking about, I think you guys are lenders, right?
I'm a lender, he's a realtor.
Lenders and realtors.
Stay in front of the camera, you're not in the camera.
So come on up here. There we go. Lenders and real estate people, real estate agents. Do you do multifamily or single family or what do you?
Single family residence.
Okay.
But I have a business too. I have a virtual assistant.
Rodrigo, you're out of the camera. Come on.
Yeah, come on up. So you guys can talk about for a couple seconds and then.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. My name is Rodrigo Suerte Felipe. Actually, I was not here last month because I'm traveling, but this month, so I'm here now. So thank you so much for coming. This is a great event. Actually, I've been doing this for like, I think for almost 5 months now. So it's a great event. I learned a lot from this, from a lot of different investors. So by the way, I'm actually like, I own a virtual assistant company from the Philippines. If you guys need help or need assistance for your business, we could help you, from security. We have clients from security company. We have collection company. We have insurance. We have real estate. We have medical field. So name it, as long as we could duplicate what you're doing actually pretty much. So go ahead.
Do they do lead generation?
We do lead generations too. Actually, we do lead generations right now. We do AI, so we have people that does AI too in our company. So we're pretty advanced actually when it comes to like lead generations too. So and then like if you are realtors or you are in real estate, we could also help you. So thank you so much. Yeah. And this, by the way, Agnes is my partner. She's the one actually who invited me to this group. Yeah.
Thank you, Roy. Good evening, friends from ITI. I've been sponsoring since July of last year, so this is my 11th month, and I would just like to, thank you all. Thank you. That's my last line. I am always delighted to see everyone, every first Wednesday of the month. And I'm a mortgage lender. I've been doing loans for almost 21 years. I do residential, commercial, private lending, whatever, all kinds of financing, just call me. And actually, this is my last day to sponsor. I'll be joining Jim's group in City of Industry, because I live in Riverside. So this is like almost
Oh,
70
traveling
miles.
almost 2 hours every day.
70 miles
Oh,
for
every month.
me
Yeah,
to
just
drive
come.
every month. I come here. So, and as Rodrigo said, by the way, we're partners. So he's a realtor, I'm a lender, so we work together on a lot of deals. It's awesome. Use Rodrigo if you want to be represented in your real estate deals, and use me for your loans. My cell number is not there, 626-731-2162. Anyway, also, as Rodrigo said, I'm also a singer, so that's my side hustle. So I've been in entertainment, come. Yay.
So let's see, the meeting's gonna go pretty much the same as the way we usually do it. Christina and Jim are going to interview, or Christina and Jim are gonna come up and interview Andrew. And then for, I think, from 7:30 to 8:30, they're gonna interview Andrew. And then we're gonna break out into little tiny groups, and then the groups will probably come into the networking groups. So if you've been here before, it's gonna be pretty much the same. Let's see, so the sponsor thing, if anybody volunteers, so I'm a volunteer, Jim's a volunteer. If you guys feel that you can give some time to ITI, we take little volunteers, and just hit me up or Christina, or Steve's not here, but hit us up and we'll follow up on that. Other than that, we can introduce Christina and Jim. They're gonna be the main interviewers, and you guys can come up then.
Right on.
Yeah.
Investor to investor, what does that mean? That means I'm an investor. What does that mean about you guys? You're investors. That's why you're here. That's why you get your ass in those seats. That's why you show up. There's a reason why you want to be an investor. Do you know what that reason is?
Make money.
Make money. Who else? What's the reason?
Financial independence.
Financial freedom. Connections.
Prepare for a lifestyle.
Prepare for a lifestyle.
Buy Bugatti. Help others.
There's a lot of reasons as to why you guys are here. Huge amount of reasons. Is that reason's clearly enough that it got you here, right? It got you here tonight. Now, how many people have had real wins in real estate? Woo-hoo, you happy about it? Real wins. Yes. Okay, how many people have had hard times in real estate? The same hands? Those
Some of us.
Some of us? If you're willing to play, you're gonna have wins. If you're willing to play, you're gonna have losses. That's the truth of real estate. If you're willing to play. So what is it that keeps us going in real estate? If we've had our wins, we've had our losses. What is it? Some guys who buy wins and losses.
More wins.
Purpose.
Purpose,
More wins.
more wins.
Faith.
Faith. So let me tell you one of my stories, if I may. So it's 2008, 2009. How are the markets doing in 2008 and 9?
Awesome.
Woohoo, aren't they doing great? Am I super excited?
I wish it happened again.
Honestly.
I understand. But I was over leveraged in 2007, 8, and 9. So I had 50 doors, 300 doors I shared with other people, 50 doors of my own. I was in the middle of a condo conversion, a lot split, and doing rehabs both in LA and up in Oregon. I was a little overstretched. My daughter was born in October of 2009. Anybody know what my why is in real estate? Huh? My daughter. It was about family.
Yeah.
You see, I got married in September of 2006, feeling like I was top of the world. 2006, right? Oh man, it was the top of the market, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I'm like, baby, don't worry about it. My husband's retired. I'm like, I got it covered. We can have a daughter, we can have kids. Well, 3 kids and 6 dogs. That was our agreement. 3 kids and 6 dogs. Anybody make those agreement with their partners, right? I am certain that I got it nailed. I have way more than tripled my wealth at that point in time. And I knew I could afford it. I could afford to do what the purpose was of my portfolio. I could get married and have children. I could be there for my kids. That was what I wanted. And then 2007, 2008. In 2009, I was losing about $100,000 a month in value. $100,000 a month. I don't know about you guys, but that's a little upsetting, disturbing, worrying. I didn't feel like I had it covered anymore. I didn't feel like I could make sure that I could fulfill on my commitment to my husband. So I must have been about 6, maybe 8 months pregnant. And I remember distinctly walking through the kitchen of my husband's house. And this was the thought that struck me. They can take everything from me, but they can't take my daughter. Everything. Because I had what my why was. I had another being in the world that I could stand for, that I could love, that I could make a happy and healthy home for. So why do I tell this story? What is the meaning of this? The meaning of this is how many people are going through hard times now? Now. Yeah. Now. We can hope for downturns and be smart enough to catch the downturn, buy when it's bad, right?
Yeah.
We hope to be that smart, but we're not always that smart. Now, I'm still in real estate. Why am I still in real estate? Because I still had my why. You see, being a mom was my why. And I was about to be a mom. Like seriously, this baby was going to be born and I was going to fulfill my job. So I made the commitment to not walk away from real estate, not walk away from the short sales, not walk away from the screwed up projects, not walk away from the fact they pulled my construction loan. Recommit to what was my meaning, what was my purpose. And that's what got me through those really freaking messed up, dark times. Is really recommitting to my why. So for those of you guys who are in the middle of that process, in the middle of that question, in the middle of walking those paths right now, what is your purpose? What is your why that's going to hold you, caress you, support you, give you that inner fiber of what it takes to show up when the market isn't being quite so friendly? Because it's in every single one of us that we have that capacity to show up, to stay committed, and to be the better human being we all know that we're meant to be, even if this moment isn't that. Welcome to ITI. What does it mean to have a life of transformation and a life of real estate? Jimmy, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Jim. For the past 2 years,
Jimmy, you're on camera.
Come in. I tried to stay in camera, but I don't know if I did a good job.
You were in camera, Jimmy.
okay.
Hey, Jim.
For the past 2 years, I was sitting in your seat, eager to soak up all the real estate wisdom I can as an investor and as a syndicator. A year later, I started volunteering for ITI. And now I'm even starting my own ITI chapter in City of Industry. On the second Thursday of every month, starting June, in which I invite all of you to come. It would be my pleasure to have you there. As you can see, it has been a transformational journey to go from where you're sitting to volunteering to now standing up here and speaking in front of all of you. Here at ITI, we transform dreams into reality. The possibility is endless. So I highly recommend that you check out the ITI volunteer program, ITI leadership program. On that note, where are all my volunteers at? Can you guys raise your hand?
Yeah.
Our work and your commitment and your time dedication to this group. With that, give it back to Christina.
So what ITI likes to do is networking and education, and that's what we're going to give you tonight. And we are lucky that we have Andrew here with us, Andrew Wessling, man there, the man of the hour. Ask these people, how many people are here tonight because you love real estate? Right? How many people are here tonight because you love transformation? And how many people are here tonight because you love Andrew? Yeah, I'm here tonight because I love Andrew. I do, I love Andrew, and I'm gonna read his bio, but I wanna tell you why I invited him first. Can I tell you why I invited Andrew? You see, I sit on different panels at other ITI or FEB meetings, not other ITI meetings yet. Jimmy will hopefully someday invite me to his meeting. Can I come to your meeting sometime? Okay. But at FEB meetings or at other meetings, best ever conference, places that I've been to where I have been able to speak from the stage. And now, here's the thing. One time, I was on a panel and I was up against Jeremy Vole. Anybody know Jeremy? Right? Jeremy Vole? He's pretty intimidating. Right? I was up against Robert Fergosa. Right? Another pretty intimidating guy. But then, and I felt like I held my own. But then when I saw Andrew talk at FEB South Bay, I was like, oh crap. Okay, let me hide back here because his level of knowledge and expertise in his field inside of real estate, his depth of being committed to him knowing what it is he's talking about and supporting his clients. And I've sent him clients because I know he can take a deal that's tough because of the knowledge he's done, how he's prepared himself as a professional and do something with it. Even if it's a picked up deal, even if it's a deal you think you can't get financing for. If Andrew can get you financing, he will, because that's what he does. And he uses his knowledge to do that. And also he has a really awesome 8-month-old kid who's homesick right now. And I love family. All right, Andrew Wessling, Director of Capital Markets, is responsible for new loan originations and closings from multifamily commercial properties nationwide. Mr. Wessling is based out of Walker and Dunlop, Los Angeles' office. Throughout his career, he has underwritten and closed more than 1.5 billion in debt and equity financing from multifamily, retail, office, hotel, manufactured, self-storage properties across the country. And I'm just gonna stop there because I think that gives you your background. Come on, let's welcome Andrew up.
Need some intro music.
Yes, we do. You're right in the middle.
Max, put some music on.
I wish I
Hey,
knew.
that's too
I
late.
would've let you-
Moments moved on. It's all right. All right, so Andrew, very quickly, why don't you give people a little bit of your background? Like, how did you go from being a mortal man to being at Walker and Dunlop?
Sure. So I graduated, I went to Boston University. My whole family was in sort of arts and sciences. My father was a professor almost his entire career in academia. And I always knew that I was the black sheep of the family. I always knew I wanted to be in business and finance in some regard. So I went to school, I studied accounting and finance, and I moved to California chasing my now life. And I had absolutely no idea what I was going to do because it was 2008. And my first crack at getting into the finance world was to work for a bank. And so I spent about 6 years with the private bank at Union Bank, and we were doing all kinds of custom credit, a little bit of real estate, which I fell in love with at the time. And I remember my first real estate loan that I had underwritten at the bank and then closed for my client. I was like, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I knew at that time that I wanted to do it. We weren't just, again, it was a soft spot in the market, early 2010s. The bank was very conservative. And so I knew I wanted to go out on my own. I was sick of saying no to my clients. No, we can't do that. No, that's not our forte. No, I have to refer you to my other friend at this bank because they can do it. And so I went out on my own to join a boutique mortgage banking shop called George Elkins Mortgage Banking Firm. It was around for about 100 years here in Los Angeles. So learned from my mentor at the time. I was very fortunate to learn from someone who became my partner and friend for life. And we sold that company in 2016 to Walker & Dunlop. It's been a great marriage ever since. And so what we do now is we wear 3 hats. We're a direct lender. We are what's called a correspondent, meaning that we represent capital from life insurance companies. We place that capital for them, and then we service those loans after the fact. And then we're a broker of both debt and equity for all things commercial real estate. So all asset classes. We're generalists. Our firm, though, really are bullish on multifamily. We're the largest multifamily lender in the country. We're the largest agency multifamily lender in the country, which is Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. So we can dive into all of that. So about 50% of our business is multifamily. 50% of our business are all other asset classes. And I love what I do every day.
So tell us a little bit, to me, I think I know what the secret sauce is of Walker & Dunlop. You describe why those 3 classes makes you guys unique.
So the secret, yeah.
Here's what I want you guys to understand is that you don't finance a deal one way. You finance a deal with multiple different types of financing, even all on the same deal. So Andrew, go into that and why this is important. You have to do all 3.
Sure. So the secret sauce of Walker & Dunlop, we've always said, is that we're a small company feel with all the tools and products of the big firms. So our biggest competitors are CBRE, JLL, Wells Fargo, JP Morgan Chase, right? They have tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of employees. We have about 1,500 employees, and yet we put up the same numbers transaction volume wise as some of the largest financial institutions in the country. So how do we do that? It's by being able to be nimble. It's to be creative, and it's to be able to navigate the entire capital stack of any commercial real estate deal. So when you go into it, the debt, the mortgage is a very important part, but we don't just stop there. If our clients need joint venture equity capital, we help them source that and make introductions and marriages there. If they need preferred equity and mezzanine capital to bridge the gap between common equity and debt, we provide that. We also have that on our balance sheet that we can provide. And so with all the tools that we have, and then on top of that, the relationships that we've established with Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, and all of the other capital sources that we represent, we've just carved out a niche where we don't have all of the regulation of the banks, but we can broker to them if need be. So they are both friend and foe in some capacity, but we also always are acting in the best interest of our client, right? So we have a fiduciary responsibility to source them best in class and best in market terms. And so we don't have to be limited to our own balance sheet if we offer and can be the most competitive. But if it isn't, we're the first to say, you need to structure the deal this way because this will be more beneficial for your business plan, for your risk tolerance, for whatever it may be.
Okay. You guys get a sense for that?
A quick question, please.
Yeah.
Can you go a little further into mezzanine debt? That's always been like a very.
Yes.
You want to do that now or you want to do that later?
Why not? Right here, let's do it.
Sure. So one of the questions that we had talked about as we were sort of pre-planning this is the current environment. How is that affecting commercial real estate?
That's fine. Let's go for it.
I think a lot of people are feeling it in multifamily today too. Your buying power doesn't go as far today, right? Rates at 7% mean you can only borrow so much on a given property, right? So that means you have to put more equity into a deal just to acquire it. And so with senior loans being sort of limited in that capacity by our high rates, it's a hard sell to say, hey, look, when you're used to putting 20% equity into a deal, now you got to do 40%. That's a tough pill for a lot of sponsors to swallow. And so this is not a new idea. It hasn't really penciled as well as it has today. But mezzanine debt or preferred equity capital is what sits in between the sponsor equity and your first mortgage position, right? So it's kind of like a hybrid between the two. You can structure it in multiple ways. Mezzanine debt is structured as debt, and preferred equity is typically collateralized by the shares in, say, the LLC that's buying the real estate. So you don't actually have a real estate interest. You only have the shares in the LLC that owns it. But ultimately, they do the same thing. It's a sort of higher cost capital alternative to equity. So if you think about if you're a syndicator or if you're an LP equity investor investing in a syndicated deal, you're looking at your equity returns. Your internal rate of return is what we usually talk about, right? And you say, okay, over the 3 or 5 year hold in this one project that we're doing, my IRR is going to be 22% or 25%. And as an investor, I look at that and say, oh, that's a pretty good number. As a sponsor, and if I'm taking you on as my LP equity, I'm paying you that 22 or 25%, right? I mean, that's coming out of the deal that could be going in my pocket. Instead of taking on that 22 or 25% equity investor, what if I could get mezzanine debt that costs me about 15 to 16%? So that, as a sponsor, that actually saves me money. And if it's available, I can use that in lieu of just bringing in more common equity.
15% rate of interest.
And as a lender, think about it from the mezzanine provider, right? The most secure position on the debt side is going to be that first trustee, right? The senior debt, right? So they're going to get paid whatever market rate is, call it 6.5%, 7% today, right? So if I'm going subordinate to that piece as a lender, I want to get paid for that. Now, can I get equity returns? Maybe. That's a great place to be. And that's why we've seen a lot of capital flow into that side, because a lot of people that were writing first trust bridge loans now only want to write preferred equity and mezzanine debt because they feel comfortable even going to 75 or 80% loan to cost in total behind a senior, right? But if they're getting paid 16, 17% for it, that feels like equity returns.
And does it turn into equity or is it solely debt?
So it can. There's, again, multiple ways to structure it. So you can have convertible options. Mostly it's just a buyout or a forced buyout at some point. Oftentimes you're taken out with at stabilization via refinance or via the sale. And so, and just one step further on it, there's so many ways to skin this cat. Some of them will have a hard pay component. So let's say your mezz is costing you 15% all in. You may owe that mezz lender 7% ongoing current pay, and the other 8% accrues, and that stacks up. And so at refi or sale, that's when you take out the rest of it, the balloon.
Okay, we're good?
That makes sense?
It's really an ongoing question.
Isn't it great? No, it's great. I had the same question as well.
So let's elaborate this. 5 years ago, no one was using mezz.
Yeah.
Senior loans were 3%, and they were going to 80% LTC, right? Maybe 85. Because everyone felt comfortable, right? Little did we know, now we're sitting here, now your senior lender is probably getting 65 max, right? So that 15, 20% that's no longer being funded by your senior loan, that's got to come from somewhere. It's either got to be common equity or what we call bridge capital, right? This mezzanine or preferred kind of quasi debt equity.
Institutional or is it private money?
A little bit of both. Institutional has exploded in the last 36 months because everyone saw the opportunity to make yield in a pretty safe position, especially behind multifamily first trust deeds. So I'd say forever it was dominated by private equity, smaller family office types. And now, look, Blackstone and TPG are writing pref on the biggest deals up and down, New York City and Miami.
What type of property?
All asset classes. Most will defer to multifamily, right? Just because it's the easiest to understand. People feel that they feel protected even at high leverage with 15, 20% of equity in front of them. Other asset classes, it's more of a stretch, but there are people that play in that space.
Does it still have to DSCR at a pretty high ratio?
So typically, again, we're talking about on a stabilized value add, like your standard multifamily value add deal, right? Let's say we do a lot of this behind Fannie and Freddie. So if we're writing a Fannie loan to 65% loan to purchase price on an asset, we will allow pref behind it to a combined 105 debt service. So that's the first trustee plus the pref have to underwrite to a 105. As opposed to your typical, which will be a 125 on the first mortgage, right? So that limits how much pref or mezz can go behind your Fannie deal, right? So are there other, there's Fannie and Freddie set those limits, right? So are there other lenders that might go lower than that? Yeah, probably, especially on a really juicy value add deal. There's lenders that will go pref and mezz on a construction deal, right, behind a first trustee. So, again, there's so many ways to structure and sort of financial engineer the debt stack today, or the whole capital stack today, that but that you're seeing such a prevalence of it today because of where we're at with first trustees.
How do you value a juicy deal? Because it's like,
Let me add on to that.
Yeah.
What are you seeing in today's multifamily market, right? When it comes to creating a juicy deal? Are they possible? Are they available? How are you getting them financed?
Yeah.
We've touched a lot on how you're getting them financed, but
Yeah, look,
Give them more
they're available, and it's the same stories of in the last 10 years. It's all about finding the deal, right? And that's always the hardest part. And so, look, I mean, our team has done over $1.5 billion over the last 6+ years. So that's about 250 million a year. Our average loan size on the debt side is, call it 10 million. It's about 25 transactions a year that our team of 3 does every year. So that's what, 225 transactions. For every transaction that we do, and that doesn't seem like a lot of transactions, right? I mean, I don't know if it is or isn't. Now, comparatively, there's some teams internally that do, thousands of them, sure. We're a small cog in a big wheel, but for those 220 that we do, that we funded over the last 6-7 years, we've probably looked at, I don't know, 8,000 deals, 10,000 deals, right? So we look at a ton of deals, and we can finance a lot of them, but the sponsors either tell us, look, the numbers don't work, or the seller doesn't want the price that we were willing to pay, or whatever it might be. So those deals never materialize, right? So the juicy deals are probably that 200 out of 10,000, right? And again, that's our team. Now, you spread that across our entire company, and then our competitor firms, right? That starts to add up. There are a lot of juicy deals out there. So they're still out there. Man, what makes them juicy? In-place rents being well below market for a number of reasons, either poor management or eyes off the wheel, absentee management and ownership. We're seeing a lot of properties that were built with tax incremental financing, TIF bonds. So they have a government finance component to them. And if there's still enough runway left, that produces income. And there's actually a tax abatement that runs with that property. And so your expense load is basically capped, and there's upside still in rents. So we're seeing a lot of people make that play today. There are folks that, it all comes down to finding affordable housing that you can jump rents on, right? I mean, especially in multifamily, that's a juicy deal. It's harder today because rents went up so considerably, right? Today, you have to take into account much lower and slower rent growth in most markets, but there's still rent growth. There's still great rent growth markets, right? I mean, if you look at, there's a lot of great economists I follow. Neil Bawa, he always does his top markets every year, right? I think he picked Grand Rapids. I mean, the projected rent growth in Grand Rapids is 12% something for 2024, right? So there's still markets that are churning. They're usually like secondary to a larger market, like a suburb of Detroit, right? Something like that. But you have to be more creative than just, hey, I'm buying a multifamily deal in a good market and rents are going to go up 10% a year. That was a formula that worked for 5 years. It no longer works today for the most part.
yeah.
So you mentioned that lenders will go from 85% to 60 or 65%. So in your opinion, what caused that?
That's it.
Oh, okay.
The interest
Yeah,
rate.
so,
Yeah.
yeah, it's all a function of interest rate. So what's interesting is the lender underwriting, the parameters have not changed, right? They're still underwriting to a 125 minimum debt service coverage. They're still using the same amortization. There's no neg-am loans or all this, junk that was going on in 06 and 07. The loans that were written in 21 and 22 were solid loans, assuming the performance played out. No one anticipated rates would double, go up 2.5x, right? And so what happened is when those loans have now matured, they were at 3%, whatever they were, and now you're refinancing into 7.5%. You can only get so much loan dollars based on that 7.5% interest rate. So that's what's creating some stress, some capital markets distress on certain properties across the country.
It was a perfect description, Andrew, of what is the biggest difference that has moved multifamily from being something that was, one could say a golden child, and in some ways we're going to talk about how maybe we still consider it a golden child, to being something where it's just harder to be able to be certain that it's going to perform. And it's like they're stuck in the middle. It's almost like this transition zone where it's like, okay, this work, and then now we've got financing in 2001, 2002. Those buildings.
21, 22.
Thank you. 21, 22. I did that earlier, didn't I? I did. 21, 22. See, that's why Andrew's here.
Financing in 01 and 02 is interesting too, though. That's another story.
That's another story.
Right after the tech bubble, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, it was tough.
Yeah,
Tough
we can talk
sledding.
about that too.
People
I
made
just
great
worry about that
buys,
one also.
but they made great buys with hard financing and high rates, so.
And therefore, going to my point, which is, if you talk about what was doing great before, it was a bit of the golden child, it was protected by the low interest rates and compressing cap rates. Then we went into this period where things were financed in such a way that they were more fragile, more vulnerable to movement. Maybe they didn't buy a rate cap on the loan that they were getting. Then we have deals falling out, but in the deals falling out, we're also potentially, and Andrew, I'd love your opinion on this, at a point where multifamily is still a golden child. But why? Why is it now a golden child, even in the middle of the hardships that we're seeing?
So we look at it, we always look at it comparatively across asset classes, and we'll get into that a little bit more too. But I mean, when we look at distress in the market, we've been talking about this, and you made a comment, you're like, oh, I wish it would go back to 08, right? I wish we'd get a crash, right? There's no real reason
wish
that
we had a
we're
big
gonna get a
capture.
crash,
I
specifically in
agree.
multifamily, right? The fundamentals of multifamily housing nationally are so strong still, right? There's a national shortage of housing. The affordability of single-family homes is wild, to the point where they're now coining the term forever renters, right? Some people that will never buy a house. So they'll be renters for their entire lives. Now, are there certain markets that were overbuilt and there's oversupply and you're seeing a significant effect? Absolutely. Look at Nashville, right? Look at parts of Austin. No doubt, I would be really wary buying multifamily in some of those. Atlanta in certain submarkets. Until you see that supply, and look, that supply will get absorbed. Absolutely, I'm 100% confident, but it's going to take a little while because they put too much in at one time. But there are other markets that are still very undersupplied and need housing and need affordable housing specifically. And so for that reason, multifamily is always going to be a necessity. And so it's always going to continue to sort of chug along. It may not get 20% rate increase, rental rate increases year over year, but honestly, it shouldn't. It never had. And that was a period of time in the pandemic that we should never see again. I think it was bad for the consumer. I think it was kind of bad for the country as a whole, but we lived through it. It was great for landlords. And now we're back to just, more conservative 2, 3, 4% rental rate hikes annually in most markets tracking inflation.
Let me ask some questions real quick. Okay, so who's actively looking in some version of a residential market right now? Okay, so tell me what you're seeing. Are you seeing undersupply or oversupply in the market you're looking in?
Undersupply.
Undersupply, where are you looking?
Looking in Texas, some areas in Texas,
Okay.
Ohio.
Ohio. Okay, another hand was up. With Nick, are you actively looking right now? Was you one of the hands?
Yeah, but it's in transition.
In transition. Okay, Kenny, you looking right now?
Yes, I've been looking, actually in Austin, you mentioned it, and yeah, there's a lot of
Is your experience
interesting.
oversupply or undersupply
I
in
think the
Austin?
price has been decreasing, so it's probably
Prices
over, yeah.
Oversupplied. Okay, well, give me one more hand. There was another hand over here who's actively looking. No? Was it you? Alright, so I think it's important to understand the difference between oversupply and undersupply, and that everything ends up being regional, even if we're talking in a very macro area right now, in a very macro way, that it is still regional, but residential is its own little box. We'll go into asset classes later. Jim, you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question. You mentioned Neil Bawa earlier. He mentioned that there's 1,000 multifamily deals on Bridgelow underwater. Are you seeing those deals getting discounted, or is it just more recapitalization market?
So, yes, but there's so many caveats. So the problem with multifamily is that it's such a good asset class. That even a distressed loan is still probably a very good asset. And so for that reason, there is financing that can usually rescue that, right? There's rescue capital available, or the equity behind it, the sponsorship wants to keep the asset because it's been performing, right? It long-term, it will be a good asset. So they're either writing the ship with capital calls, or they're going to their lenders, a lot of whom might be banks, and they're saying, look, no one expected 7.5% rates, shame on all of us, but it's not the asset's fault, work with us. So they've been extending, right? And they've been giving a lot of leash for multifamily. If you compare that to office towers in downtown Los Angeles, you're seeing a lot more articles about big investment firms giving back towers, right? Because the reason is no one has the same bullish outlook and rosy outlook like they do on multifamily. So the other thing is 1,000 loans is nothing. It's a drop in the bucket. I mean, that's like, that it's nothing. There's probably 5 million multifamily loans in the country, right? So if you're looking for that distressed play, it's still a needle in a haystack. You got to be power to you, and I hope you find it, but there aren't that many, and you need someone then who is not committed to the asset, either operationally or equity-wise, where they're willing to walk away. And I think that's where we've seen a couple of articles, maybe, of large syndicators, right? Who gave back, I think, large portfolio here and there. And my guess is, look, the general partner of that syndication probably didn't have much skin in the game, ultimately. So they feel confident just saying, you know what, let someone else deal with it. Too much work. That's my guess.
How many people know of or are in the middle of a capital call right now? Or know of or are aware of something going astray right now?
We just got through one.
Size distributions, I mean.
Positive distributions is fine, form of distress.
And positive distribution is it money in your pocket?
I'm an LP investor in a multifamily deal.
Yeah.
Pause distribution, which is not a good
Oh,
sign.
pause. I think it's a positive. Thank you.
No, pause.
Yeah.
And in their most recent update, they're nervous that they're not gonna meet the DSCR for this year.
So
Scary.
let's talk, that is scary, because that means that the bank might actually step in at that point.
Hope not. My money's gone.
Why don't you talk to that?
Well, it's hard to tell is it occupancy? Is it, you're right, I mean, there's a reason that you're not meeting the DSCR, right? So you're gonna break your covenant.
So DSCR, explain what it is, because I see some confused places.
Sure, debt service coverage ratio. So every loan that we make as a lender has some cushion in it to protect us. So if you have a property that has a net operating income of $1, of $1.25, we will lend you $1 for every $1.25 of net operating income. That 25% is our cushion. If it falls below a certain threshold, that's when we say, whoa, what's the issue here? And if it falls below 1, you're no longer meeting our loan payment, right? Because you don't have enough money to even pay back the $1 that we lent you. So that's when we would step in and say, okay, if you can't run it, we will, or find someone else who can.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about capital calls, and at what point, what are you seeing that's effective in that area? What are you seeing that's not effective in that area? I mean, it doesn't have to be, we can debate it as a philosophy, but also tell me what you're seeing, if you're seeing any of it. We had this conversation via email about, Christina, you're saying this, but I'm not saying it, so,
Yeah, look, in our world, especially as a Fannie and Freddie lender, where most of our first trustees are still limited in their loan to cost and loan to value. On our portfolio, we service about 140 billion of loans that we have put out, and we have very little going on in terms of distress and capital call, very little. We hear about it and we do see it. I would say, and we've been through it, right? It's not to say that we have none. So the one thing I can say, and it's hard to do this as an LP in a deal, it's really up to the GP, but you need to be communicative and proactive with your lender, right? There is a point, and that goes both ways, with both your lender and your limited partners, who you're going to be providing a capital call to. There is a point that if you are being open and honest and transparent, and things aren't going the way they are expected to go, your team, your equity investors should know that, and you should be preparing them for the event of a capital call, not when the lender comes calling and then saying, surprise, here's the capital call. That it's a bad look for everyone. The lender doesn't want to do that. I think a lender, I don't know if they can, but if they are willing to listen and willing to work with you, if you are early in the process and open about it, you'll have a much better opportunity than coming to them and saying, oh, we're breaching our covenant. Sorry, what do you want? Your problem now.
do you have your hand up?
Yeah, I was wondering, since you're a lender, how often do you ask the people that you're lending money to for their profit and loss? Is now that the interest rate is so high, are you doing it like once a month, or are you doing it once a year? I have some loans that they don't ask at all, and then some that ask once a year. But right now, I don't know, how are you doing that?
So in our own book, at minimum, it's once a year. Could be quarterly. We do have some loans that we track monthly. Most of those were value add bridge loans that we made on our balance sheet. So we want to track that monthly anyway to make sure that capital is being deployed, renovations are getting done, rents are being achieved, et cetera, right? Just follow the business plan logically. So look, I don't think, I could be wrong, but I don't know if there's a lender out there today not requiring at least annual financial updates. I know that did kind of go away for a few years. I think people got a little bit loose in multifamily, but I can't imagine that would be the fact today. And look, it depends on if it's a cash flowing, fairly stabilized asset. I think once a year is fine, right? But if it's a value add, if it's a transitional play, if there's some business plan involved, as the lender, sort of damn right, I should be able to look into the books as often as I want, really, but at least monthly or quarterly to make sure that you're staying on track. I don't want to throw bad money after bad money, right? So.
I have 3 loans through my credit union. They've never asked. I'm kind of surprised. Like, okay.
Credit unions are a wonderful thing.
One of the other things though is that you're also, I don't think you presented to your credit union at any point in time that you were doing a value add. That it was never a building that was ever underperforming for them to begin with.
Yeah, my DSR was way high.
Right. So.
Can you drop the name of your credit union?
Unless you're a firefighter, yeah, you probably can't get it.
No, I'm not a firefighter. The other good credit unions. The question over here and then Jim.
Andy's taking recruits.
I have 2 questions. I mean, the capital call was I guess we could go a little bit more indefinite as to why a capital call would occur. First, that's my first question.
Yeah, a number of reasons, right? You could have burned through your interest reserve that the lender provided you. You could have burned through your capital expenditure reserve by, going over budget. You could have exceptional amount of vacancy, right? So you actually have to pull capital in to meet loan payments. I guess theoretically, you could have a change of business plan at some point and say, oh, we're not going to renovate these. We're going to build a clubhouse, and then there's another capital call. I mean, there's a number of reasons why it could happen. I think the most common is that you burn through your interest reserve because things are just taking longer than anyone expected. And so you haven't turned over as many units, you're not producing as much income as you thought. Or, in the worst case, you did turn over the units and your rents didn't move.
Are these specific to construction loans? The capital call?
No, I don't think so. I mean, there's a hotel that I think was just foreclosed upon in Miami, a little boutique, or Orlando, boutique hotel, had been well performing, and it dropped to like 40% occupancy. And so I don't know what the story was, but I can imagine there were some capital calls before it went back to foreclosure, but that's just based on it wasn't producing enough income to service the debt.
And some of the capital calls I'm hearing about and indirectly in the know on, what I'm seeing is increased expenses having to do with interest rates reset, payments being reset.
Yep.
Right, and insurance being triple, going over, and that between those two and then any other third element, like a lag or rents flattening out instead of increasing, is more than enough to get them to burn through their interest reserve, and then the red flag goes off at the bank. The question becomes, we talked about this earlier, is at what point do they pull a capital call? At what point do they stop distributions? And how proactive are they, or how retroactive are they? Because if the more proactive they are, if they're doing it as soon as they're saying, oh man, I can now calculate 6 months in the future and we're going to burn through our interest reserve in 6 months because of the increased expenses we've got, let's stop distributions now and start communication with our LPs now. That ends up being a much better deal when if they do have to go to a capital call, because now they've shown that they're protecting existing reserves and they have a hold time to be capable of doing a capital call. But if they wait till they're completely out, or the bank is calling it, then at that point it's the oh shit plan. And that's going to be a much harder raise from getting confidence in their LPs being willing to participate in the game. Even if the asset itself is fine, but it's the financing or the capital stack that actually is the difficulty.
Sometimes, okay, so I go through this exact experience where I have a deal like this. Sometimes in a syndication deal, right, it requires more parties involved. For example, one of my deal in Orlando, we have, the bank, then we have private equity, and then we have TIC, which is tenant in common 1031 exchange into the deal. And through like this capital call where we're trying to refi from a bridge loan to agency debt, it's a process because everybody has to agree on the term. And if one party doesn't agree, then it gets delayed. So that's a big learning lesson I had to go through from syndication. And to follow up with, I have a question for that. So right now we're trying to switch from bridge loan into agency debt. What is the difference between CMBS versus agency debt? Because with agency debt, we're still 1.5 million shortfall on capital call, but then CMBS is more linear, like we don't have to raise as much. So is there like an impact on return on investment long-term on CMBS?
Let's back up and ask this question. What's the difference, the different types of lenders out there? Because I think that's even, and then we'll flow into that.
Okay.
So you mentioned a few. So agency, which we had talked about, which is Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. CMBS, which stands for commercial mortgage-backed securities. Imagine Goldman Sachs and all the other Wall Street banks. They're making loans on commercial real estate, and they're packaging up all those loans together and selling them off as bonds. We call that a CMBS loan. And then you have balance sheet lenders, right? And those balance sheet lenders can be banks, they can be credit unions, they can be life insurance companies, they can be private equity companies. So they can be non-bank lenders. They can be using their own balance sheet, but ultimately what they're doing is they're holding it on their book, at least for the foreseeable future before they sell it off to a servicer. But you know that when they make a loan, they're your lender and your servicer. With both agency, Freddie, let's take a step back. We're also your lender and your servicer, but those loans are also being securitized. So Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're being chopped up into bonds. They're sold on the secondary market. You can actually go and buy them. They're called MBS, mortgage-backed securities. So if you go to your Treasury Direct account, I think you can buy them direct. So you have securitized lending versus balance sheet lending. Securitized lending, because they're being ultimately chopped up into bonds, are very strict. They're very inflexible, and they protect the bondholder, because that's all that matters. cash flow to the ultimate bondholder. So if things go awry at the underlying property, there are triggers in place that step in to make sure that those cash payments continue to the bondholder, basically no matter what, until you reach sort of the dead point. A balance sheet lender has way more flexibility because they control that loan and they can look at it and say, you know what? We don't need that DSCR covenant. We're good. We trust you. You know, they can make some exceptions. They don't do it often, but they can and they have. They can extend the loan, right? There's certain things that they can do that CMBS and agency just don't have the flexibility to do. Are there long-term ramifications? I don't think so. What you'll find is that CMBS is typically the most aggressive underwriting in the market today, specifically for multifamily. With banks sort of being right in the middle and then agency erring on the side of conservatism. And that's because they won't break on their underwriting standards. They have done some things, and they've been testing out certain things like a 35-year amortization schedule and even a 40-year for certain affordable products. So there's, they have sort of at times gotten more aggressive for the right deals, but CMBS can underwrite to an interest-only debt service coverage ratio today on the right asset. So as low as a 120 interest-only debt service coverage ratio for the really good assets, and usually about a 125, maybe 130 IO. But the difference between IO and amortizing, interest-only payments versus amortizing payments, especially from an underwriting model perspective, translates to significantly more loan dollars to the borrower, which is why the CMBS loan that you're looking at is probably quoting you higher loan proceeds than the agency, right? Ultimately, though, with either of them, you're going to find inflexibility, right? So the prepayment is structured in a way that if you were to sell this asset before the loan matures, you are basically making the lender whole because they need to have all the cash that they promised to their bondholders. So if you pay them off in year 5 of a 10-year loan, you're basically giving them 5 extra years of cash. So it can be really expensive. And so the flexibility of a bank lender or a balance sheet lender can be really important depending on what the business plan is, the expected duration hold period for the asset, whatever it may be. Agency does have some benefits though over CMBS in that you can do supplemental loans, second trust deeds, third trust deeds, where you leave your first trust deed in place. So if you have a really good first trust deed that you originated 2-3 years ago, you can go back and we'll lend you more money if you've improved the NOI. So there's some really nice pieces, which is why the agency lending is such an attractive model.
Also you can get longer amortization, not longer amortization periods,
You get
longer fixed periods.
You get longer duration. We've done 20-year Fannie Mae loans, 20-year fixed.
20-year.
We've done 25-year fixed Fannie Mae loans.
What are your average, let's say like fixed periods that you're seeing right now? Whether it's like 1 year, 3 year, 5 year, you're seeing 20-year, 30-year AMs?
So for agency specifically, I'd say 75% of what we're doing is 5-year fixed. I think most people are hopeful that rates will be more favorable in that time period. So they're opting not to lock into 7 or 10-year fixed or longer. I disagree with that bet. I would actually go the opposite way. I'd take a 10-year today over a 5-year because those loans are assumable anyway. So when you sell the property, someone can take on your loan. And I don't think long-term rates are really going to be that much lower 2, 3, 5 years from now, but that's one man's opinion.
We're totally gonna have that conversation because it's one of my favorites. Right?
Always, yeah.
It is, it's one of my favorites.
But so just to wrap the question for Jim, look, you have to do what's best for your investors, always. So I think you have to weigh the inflexibility versus the flexibility or what, sort of the it's not just about the terms, but also the structure. But look, if you can reduce the amount of the capital call needed to get you out of your bridge loan, then that's a pretty major selling point for CMBS.
Yeah.
And CMBS loans also should be assumable.
All right, so let me ask you a question before we start, because I want to get into breaking down segments, niches. So how many people are interested or multifamily in general? Okay, how many people are interested in office? Okay, we got a couple. There you go. How many people are interested in like storage units? Wow, okay, and hospitality? Two, okay, two. Well, wait, hospitality, different from midterm rental.
Eventually I will.
Eventually you will,
Boutique
okay.
hotels, yeah.
So hospitality is the last one we're gonna cover. So let's break down the markets for a minute.
Can we do one more? Retail?
Retail,
Anyone in retail?
anybody retail, okay.
I love retail.
I
So
like retail.
I love retail.
Oh, yeah.
Why?
Why do you love retail? And I'll say why I don't like retail.
Well, okay, let me backtrack.
Experience.
It's a very experience heavy and relationship heavy asset class. But if you have those two things, you can negotiate long-term leases, which I don't mind with rent steps. You can get credit on those leases, which I really love. As in the underlying tenant is a credit rated tenant by Moody's and S&P. So I feel really confident in their wherewithal to pay me over that long period of time. And I think it can be very stable, especially in a time like this, coming out of the seizure of the pandemic that we had. I think if a retailer made it, for the most part, they have a very strong or fortified balance sheet. And I think it weeded out a lot of lower end, sort of shaky tenants.
Can I say why I don't like retail? Anybody care?
Yes.
Yes. They care about my opinion.
It's very important. You're very important.
No, Andrew, I would go with Andrew's opinion, but one is I don't like that it's so heavily reliant upon your network and your capacity to understand business models. It's very reliant. One of the things that was described to me in retail is basically you're in business with all your tenants.
Yeah.
And if they're capable of running their business, then you're capable of getting your rent. If they're not capable of running their business, guess who's not going to get their rent? Residential, I understand, you're housing a job. That person's going to go out, they're going to get a job, or they're going to get unemployment if they don't have a job. Whereas retail is they're either successful at doing it or they're closing their doors. And then now you have to recreate the space for the next tenant. You don't know how long that wait's going to be.
Fair.
And then you now dumped money in to recreate space for that tenant. Hopefully you get a nice long lease, a 10-year lease on that or longer, right? You're true. It has triple net. You can get better credit ratings. You get more longer term tenants, people with a longer term history, and they've made it to the.
And honestly, I mean, most of my points are on the institutional side. I actually prefer the neighborhood strip center. What we call Amazon proof, right? Things where you have to go down. There's a shopping center in El Segundo, down the street from where we live. We are there 4 times a week to eat, to buy things, to get stuff for the baby. I mean,
To pick up your nail, to get your nails done, to get anything.
That's it. That's it. And to your point, and this is like glass half full, glass half empty.
Yeah.
It's how you look at it. But I actually look at mom and pop tenants as one of the best things for me, because I know they're so invested. That is their life. If that business closes,
that is really their life.
it's their life.
It is.
And so, I mean, I don't know where you live, but in our community, we have people that have been in business for 30 and 40 years. Their kids have grown up through the school system. Their kids have worked at the family business. You get to know these people on a very personal basis. They're going to fight, scratch, claw, and kill to make sure that they stay in business to get their kids through college, to put them in a better situation. So honestly, the mom and pop tenant, I love in neighborhood strip retail.
Okay, so we were gonna do a breakdown on markets, so let's do a quick breakdown on multifamily golden child. Are we good with that? We're not good with that?
That's a lot of
Wow, I
hesitation
put that
there.
right out there,
No,
okay,
no,
no,
so
that fell flat.
I'd say it's 1A and 1B, because there's 2 asset classes that I
Yes,
love.
there is a second one on, too,
It's
but go ahead.
Multifamily and industrial.
Industrial.
Yeah, I think both of them have great tailwinds. There's probably some oversupply in certain markets in industrial also. But again, nationally, based on where we're going, e-commerce wise, logistics wise, last mile delivery, industrial, extremely bullish on. Multifamily, I think even more so though.
Okay, and then retail, we just went through retail, right?
Yep.
What you believe about retail?
Yep.
We did have some on hospitality. What's your opinion on hospitality?
I think it's segmented. If you are destination hospitality, I think you're a winner because people are still traveling. I think that's going to never go away, but you have to choose wisely, location, location, location. If you are corporate-based hospitality, city center type, I think that's going to be really ugly for a while longer, and I don't like it. And I think at this time in the cycle too, it's just, I'm not a big believer in hospitality right now. I think it's peaked. So I think you wait to buy hospitality till it kind of comes back to normal. That's my opinion.
And our office? I knew that was gonna be an answer, right?
We talk about how, I just
Going
saw,
back hospitality for a minute?
no, with office,
With
no,
office,
I
okay.
agree with big hospitality with, I'm talking about boutique hotels and short-term rentals, that's a different animal, but in office, I just saw a Blackstone $600 million sale for 185 in Manhattan, right? They bought it for 10 years ago. That's gonna continue to happen over the next couple of years.
No
What's
doubt.
the domino effect of this doom cycle,
You know,
in your opinion?
yeah, and
Can
one
you give a
point.
little background on this deal so we know what you're
Sure,
talking
yeah,
about?
and I'll talk about it. Just to your point about sort of boutique hospitality, short-term rental, ultimately, that's almost, it's a real estate play, that's a business play. If you're a good operator, again, you're gonna fight, scratch, claw, and kill for your business. I think anyone can succeed in that. I think that is a good model, especially again, location, location, location. So I do like that in small hospitality, but again, that to me is destination, right? That's not corporate based, that's not, you're gonna go to Palm Springs or Big Bear, right? You're going to a place to then use those facilities. The deal he referenced was Blackstone. It was a very large office tower that they had, they bought for $1 billion or $2 billion. They had financed it for $680 million about 10 years ago. They couldn't refinance it, so they ended up selling it for about $185 million. So lender, equity gone, lender took a haircut. I'm sure they made money along the way. So it's probably not as bad as we all think. Oh, woe is me, Blackstone, right?
I've lost money, I know the feeling. Just
Yeah.
saying, you lose billions, but.
So my take on office is it's gonna be tough. We're sitting here, I didn't get a chance to go to the other floors, but I can tell you where our office is. A lot of the floors are partially vacant. We're, even in West LA, our company, we're reducing our footprint, which I think is gonna be a big play. I think CBD, Center Business District Office Tower is gonna struggle mightily. And so I think you'll see some of these big splashy things for sure. I think suburban office is gonna do okay. Again, it's kind of like hospitality in that regard. People still want to go to the office, law firms and dentists, and there's still a need for office. Office was just overbuilt, right? I mean, I think we can all agree with that.
Well, overbuilt and its whole infrastructure
Yeah,
changed.
yeah, no
The
doubt.
whole assumption of how office was to be used and what its purpose was has changed.
Yeah.
Jim, did you have another question?
But just to wrap that,
Okay, wrap that up.
I'm not an economist, so I don't study this thing, but there has to be some tax revenue loss to cities, is what I'm kind of envisioning here, right? If that's just sold for 185 million, that's going to get reassessed, right? So now the tax that landlord is paying to the city is 1/10 of what the city had been used to. So to me, that means there's just less money for services, schools, firefighters, police, right? And so to me, does that make living in urban environments less attractive? Probably. And so what I foresee is, that makes the suburbs a little bit more attractive, right? Both for real estate investment and maybe to live in general. And so I think that's where a lot of investment goes. It's secondary, smaller markets. It's not the top 25 metros that have dominated the last decade. And so I think you're going to get some really good stories in places like Grand Rapids, because people are leaving Detroit. They still want to live in a city that has cool restaurants and bars and places where they can walk to and parks, but they don't want to be in Detroit proper. They want to be in a smaller city that still gives them that, right? So instead of Charlotte, it's Asheville. Instead of Austin, it's San Antonio. Instead of Phoenix, it's, I don't know. Yeah, maybe not, it's a bad example.
Yeah, so I have two questions. You mentioned all the asset class. So you're bullish on industrial. Are you talking about out of state or here? Because I have an investor who's investing here, and he's saying it's selling at 400 to 500 a square foot, and he doesn't believe that it's gonna appreciate much down the road. And what's the play behind that?
I don't know. I mean, if you look at vacancy rates, they're sub 1% in LA County.
Jim, do you want to repeat that so everybody can hear? I'm not sure everybody heard it. You guys hear him okay?
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry. I'll
Okay.
speak louder. So industrial, right? He's very bullish on industrial. So I asked him a question that I have an investor who invests in industrial space in California, Ontario, Almani. It's costing 400 to 500 square foot. And he's concerned that it's not going to appreciate over time. So what's the play behind that? Is it just cash flow, or what's my question?
I mean, there's not much cash flow, right? Because cap rates are so tight. But so look, I think out of state industrial is great if you can find. We have a client that's buying all throughout the Midwest, and they're getting 8 caps, 9 caps. There's some value add. It's get your hands dirty work, right? They have, sometimes they're buying vacant buildings, but there's opportunity there and there can be some big wins. A little bit of a gamble, right? Because it's not as deep of a market as LA, El Monte, Ontario, which is super deep, super tight, sub 1% vacancy. But with the amount, with the port here in LA, with the amount that everyone is now shopping online, I don't see it declining. Rents have slowed, but I think that's just true just based on the economy. But I do think rates continue to go at a healthy clip. And so like, I think it's a slow appreciation game. Real estate used to be a get rich slow game, right? Like all of a sudden 10 years ago, it was, you know, let's go to a guru and he can teach us how to make $1 billion in 3 years. Like that's, no offense, but that's not real estate. You look at all the wealthiest people in Southern California, they didn't get rich in 3 years. They held real estate for 80 years past their kids and their grandkids, and they got rich really slowly. By the way,
15 or 20 years.
sure, yeah. And by the way,
You can do it in a single lifetime. I just want to speak up for it. I'm just
Yeah.
Yeah,
saying.
but
But if you
I
make
like-
$1
that's
billion
good, I
in
like
3
that.
years, you sell a lot of seminar seats.
that's true. That's a good point. But that turns out to be your full-time job, not real estate, let's
That
be
is
honest.
correct.
Yeah.
So look, I
You
think,
can do both. I'm just speaking up for doing both. I can, we
so.
can teach and we can invest.
So Jim, to your point, look, it depends on the investor, right? If I'm in it for 60 years, yeah, hell yeah, I'm buying LA industrial. Why not? I think it's just gonna chug along. There's no place to build new, right? In the Inland Empire, it's hard to even build because there's not enough land, right? So if you can get it in Vernon, that's gonna be industrial forever.
They call it the Manhattan effect or the Manhattanization effect. LA is going to be like Manhattan where you just, the value of land is going to go up because there's so much land between the beach
Yeah.
and the master. Okay, we got a
One in the
big
back,
question in
yeah.
the back.
Yeah, so with
Thanks for your
office
patience.
spaces, I don't think we, like, the return to work to the office situation might happen a little bit, but not to the effect or to the level that we had before. A lot of jobs are just permanently going to be work from home. So with that said, what's going to happen in office spaces?
Oh, man.
Not sure.
I think there was literally an entire panel on this
It was,
last quarter. I forget who did it, but
was it the south side?
no, not in Phoebe, just somewhere else that I saw. So look, your guess is as good as mine. The studies show that like the cost of converting this office building to multifamily, it doesn't work, it doesn't pencil. You're better off just knocking this whole thing down and building a multifamily tower, as expensive as that would be.
Wow.
Because the floor plates, the requirement of access, light, the elevator
Windows.
banks, right? I mean, plumbing, it's a nightmare. So I think the stat that I heard was like 4% of existing office product nationally could be converted at like a reasonable cost at a profit. And everything else is just theoretically obsolete for a conversion or renovation or adaptive reuse.
If I may, that, just think about an office building. Think about where all the windows exist. Think about the fact that every bedroom has to have a window. Period.
And a
So-
bathroom.
I'm just not even going into the plumbing and the restructuring of it. It's just like, literally, how are you gonna take an office building that has a huge amount of spread? Right, just look at this one, right here. We've got windows here, we've got windows there, but we don't have anything where we can have windows inside the interior of the unit unless we literally pull out the center of the building to make an air shaft like they do in San Francisco. So there's just literally the logistics of what the requirements are for residential sometimes don't physically fit the building itself.
So, I mean, look, again, your guess is as good as mine. I think there has to be public-private partnership that goes on, right? To just demolish and adaptive reuse buildings and, you know, sort of maybe pick and choose what's going to be the office center and just what you can live without, right? In certain markets. I look back to downtown Los Angeles. Tom Gilmore sort of just turned the whole game on its head when he started doing the lofts, and he had city approval to turn these old office buildings and warehouse into residential. But he had to lobby city council, right, to allow him to do that zoning and adaptive reuse. So there's a lot is going to go into this. It's not a short-term solution, and there will be ramifications. There's going to be, I think, tax loss for the cities. It's going to be a tough conversation, no doubt.
All right, can I, my favorite question, crystal ball time. All right, what do you think the Fed's gonna do moving forward and how is that gonna affect real estate market? Pick a niche if you want. Crystal ball, here we go.
Okay.
One crystal ball.
My favorite saying about the Fed is that the Fed is the worst predictor of the Fed. I honestly, I don't know how they get appointed to these positions because I don't think they know what they're doing. I mean, at a high level, maybe.
I
but
see your absolute support of the Fed. I totally get it.
I
Yeah,
just,
complete
I
faith.
don't understand how they're operating because I just don't think, and I think their data is just wrong, but that's me. And I think it serves.
How many people think the Fed's data is just wrong? I know you're not alone.
Lags.
It lags. If nothing else, it lags badly, and they're
Yeah,
not
I
always measuring the same thing they used to measure.
But the
People
Fed
think
operates
that they
what the
nailed it.
Fed wants.
The Fed nails it.
I also think the 2% inflation target needs to be readjusted and rethought.
Yeah.
So I think actually we're operating at a pretty healthy clip as an economy, but that's besides the point. So what I think they do, I think they do nothing. I think they're broken in the fact that if they do anything, we have an election coming up. So if they do anything, maybe it's a cut as like a gesture of good faith that's going to be politicized. And I don't think they can do that, right? So they're kind of handcuffed on that piece. If the economy goes gangbusters, theoretically, they could go up. But I think something breaks if it goes up further from here. So I think we just stay the same until either something breaks or we have a new administration and
They make a different decision.
or you know,
Well,
they-
The monetary
they-
is supposed to be
but
independent from federal.
but they could do other policies, right? They could do tax cuts, they could do other
Yes,
things
right.
to stimulate the
Federal budget.
economy, which would then influence the Fed's decision.
Yes, it
But
will.
right now, we're at a status quo. I don't see anything changing. So unless something breaks.
How many people saw my econ conversation?
I did.
Wow. Huh?
Can you sum it up in 32 seconds?
Oh, last month, no, I thought,
I did
last
Phoebe
year.
last, I did Phoebe last month. All right, so,
How does it impact
Right.
real estate? I think transaction volumes are just down for the foreseeable future, right? We were down as an industry about 50% year over year. Or I guess going back to last year, and we're ticking up a little bit this year. I think it's just optimism. The good news is cap rates have moved, right? That's a real thing. We've talked about it. There is a correlation. I disagree with Peter Linneman, who we've had on the Walker webcast 9 times, who says there isn't a correlation. I think there is a correlation between interest rates and cap rates. They have moved. It is more attractive to buy commercial real estate today than it was 18 months ago from a cap rate perspective. Not so much from a debt perspective, but what the beauty of real estate is that it's not a stagnant asset class. And if you're a good operator with a good business plan, you can create more cash flow and create more value. And that's the beauty of America.
okay. Beauty. Okay,
So if I
we're
can,
almost out of time, so.
if I may ask a quick question for maybe all
Okay.
three of you guys, like, it seems like there's some blood on the street, or maybe it's starting to bleed.
Yes.
So like if we're in a position to maybe acquire some asset, like how do we take advantage of it? Or maybe how do we?
Have your ducks in a row. I think I don't think the landscape for debt lending has changed, right? So if you're an experienced borrower with a strong balance sheet and a good team surrounding you, you can get financed all day long. People aren't turning people away at the door. And in fact, I would say some of the loans we're making today and over the last 12 months have been some of the best loans I've ever written in my career. I think they're safe for the lender. I think they're fair to the borrower, based on where market conditions are at. And I feel great as a lender making loans on industrial, multifamily, and retail today. Office, I'm a little hesitant. We're still getting them done. I want to get paid for them. Hospitality, we're still getting them done. I want to get paid for them. I love self-storage. I think that's a great place to be sitting if you're going into an economic slowdown, which personally I think we will. But that's, again, one man's opinion.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. It's, let's do 2 more questions. Ed.
You think in the next year, there's gonna be less lenders?
Yeah, I think every year go out of business. That's just the natural progression of things. Plus, right now, there's got to be M&A, right? There's got to be transactions where banks buy banks, or they just, something goes wrong, on their balance sheet. I think keep an eye out for MF1, which is debt fund lender, that we're doing really big loans. The way they were underwriting I can't see them making it unless they get rescue capital or have to transition and sell. So I think you'll see some lenders exit the market. I think you'll see some lenders come back in the market too, though, that have been out, maybe pencils down.
Okay, one more.
Curious if you have a view. I'm hearing a lot of operators now as syndicators starting to change their stance on exit cap rates, which is a little bit unnerving and disturbing to me, but I guess it depends on people's risk tolerance and outlook.
Which way are they changing the stance on the cap rate? Are they
Actually
going-
keeping it flat or decreasing exit cap rates.
Okay.
And it ultimately boils down to what is their view on where rates would be. So I get that, but curious if you have a perspective and how you view that from a lender's angle as well.
Before I address that, one other point to add about lenders. One of the beauties of multifamily as an asset class is that you have access to Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. They're always in the market. It doesn't matter if we're in a recession. In 2008, 2009, they were one of the few lenders lending. They do not lend on any other asset classes. So that is a perk of investing in multifamily because you have liquidity in the debt market at all times. Where other lenders, banks, they could just say, sorry, we're not lending right now. We saw when the pandemic happened. Fannie and Freddie just stay the course. They're government mandated. They have to put capital into affordable housing. That is a huge, for me being bullish on an asset class. How can you say no to that? Cap rates. Look, if you want to believe your syndicator, the cap rates are going down. God bless you. Again, I think there's a correlation between cap rates and interest rates. I don't see interest rates coming down unless something breaks. So I don't see cap rates coming down. Maybe over time, we'll see gradually. If using the Fed's language, if they can get inflation under control to their standards, they should theoretically start reducing the short-term interest rate, which should put pressure on long-term rates a bit. That said, I don't see a 10-year below 4% in the next 3 years. That's my opinion. So I think we're
below 4% in the next 10 years. I think it's really, and that's.
Well, I
really
said next
important.
3 years, but yeah, I could probably go out there 5+. And so I think you're on 5 and 10-year fixed rate dollars, right? Which is what you're buying a stable. We use the 10-year as the gauge to price stabilized permanent fixed rate debt, right? So if your 10-year plus your spread to the lender, 6% money feels fair for 10-year fixed. I think that'd be a good day. I think we don't take 6% today.
I would just do that recently. All right, let's give him a hand, guys. Watching encyclopedia, did I mention that? Yeah, you guys get a sense for it, right? His depth of expertise in his field, how much he knows.
It's just reps. We see so many deals, and the more you underwrite, the more you investigate, the more questions you ask syndicators and sponsors and get into the nitty gritty. It becomes second nature, and that's how you learn the business and how you become a peer, I guess.
Very much so. So he does have a sick kid at home, but he did promise that he would stay for a little while. So we're going to do our closing circles, but Andrew's going to stay, and he says he's going to check in with the other, depends the better half, because there's all ways I can say that. Better half and whether or not he can stay past 9 o'clock. So once you're done with your networking circles, if you have questions for him, make sure you seek him out quickly. And I'm going to turn the meeting back over to Andy. Oh, wait a minute, whoa. I forgot. Franz would be disappointed if I forgot the picture, right? Here we go, guys, the picture. Jimmy, Andrew in here.
Okay.
In here, with all the people behind. Everybody happy? Arms up. Woohoo! ITI! There we go. All right, there.
All right.
Franz is the one who always does that. Nailed it. Okay, Andy, all
Okay.
yours. Bring us in.
So now we're gonna break up, yes.
Max,
Oh, all right.
don't forget.
Oh, Max, you're one of our sponsors. Do you want So I think Jesse chose a couple of our volunteers to be the heads of the group. So whoever she chose, can you please stand up and go into the other room? And then let's see, I always come here and I want to learn a little bit. So tonight I really did kind of really get a really good idea what lenders are really looking for. And hopefully you guys got the same idea. That's what I kind of learned. And let's see, it's great to see everybody here. Everybody make sure you get out your business cards and make friends. And I know I've been coming here for what, a little over a year and a half, 2 years now. And just making the friends, I finally became a little bit more comfortable because they are my friend and I understand and I trust them. Now I have invested with them. So, you know, keep on coming and creating the friendships and creating the trust. And hopefully you guys will invest with each other. And on that note, Christina, you want to come out and count everybody 1 through?
What's our number?
Jazzy. Jazz, I think
What's our number?
6 or 5.
JC,
Yeah.
how many groups do we have?
JC, how many groups?
How many groups? 6.
6 groups.
6 groups, 6 groups. All right, perfect. All right, now those of you guys who know what I've done this before. So we're gonna put you in networking groups. Right? This is your chance to actually share with other people. We do this intentionally. Because one of the things that you need to be successful in real estate, they're networking already. One of the things that you need to be successful in real estate is education and your network. So don't worry, I won't separate you guys. So you're not talking in the same group. But you guys can hook up later. So get in your group. You will have a leader in your group. They will help facilitate this. State your name. Say what you do in real estate. My badly behaved children over here. Do the next class now.
It's so exciting.
State your name, say what you do in real estate, and either state what you have to offer or what you're looking for. Because one of the ways, look, the way I found some of my best deals is by standing up here and going, hey, I'm looking for something in Arkansas. And now I've got somebody who's like, I invest in Arkansas. Let me send you an agent. Or I'm investing in Indianapolis. Oh, I'll get you some deals in Indianapolis. Truly, your network is how you get the best power in being able to find a deal. This is not done alone. So the way we do it is we count off and then you go to the group that is the number that you are in. 1, 2, I'm separating you guys. 3.
I'm not joining.
You're not joining? Okay, fine. 3, 4, okay.
6.
1,
2.
3. 4.
all the costs.
5.
6.
1.
3.
4.
6. Stops you from marketing and you're here to market. You're here to market. 1.
Coming together.
No, you get further marketing if you guys break up. Just saying, just saying. All right, so 1, fine, I'm encouraging you. Jeff? 2. All right, go find your leaders over in the other room, guys. Bye, camera.
So my client, my contact you here,